I love Kiké Hernández, and I'm not alone. Since being picked up in a trade with Miami in 2015, Kiké's been a fan favorite, being a much-needed spark plug in the locker room and an important role player on the field. Even though he was far from a star, Hernández endeared himself to the Dodger faithful with clutch hits, crazy antics, and, well, let's just say he was popular among female Dodger fans. Hernández recently signed a 2-year free agent deal with the Red Sox, and today I want to give some Sox fans an introduction to the wide world of Kiké Hernández and give a retrospective on his tenure as a Dodger. We'll take a look at how valuable Kiké was by the analytics, but also in the intangibles, and how, despite never putting up great numbers, he was integral to the Dodgers' success over the past several years. Hernández was, in many ways, the absolute ideal bench player or platoon option for any team. The crux of Hernández's value was an ability and a willingness to play every position on the field. Along with his partner in crime, Chris Taylor, he gave Dodgers manager Dave Roberts the flexibility necessary to succeed in the modern MLB. Baseball has been pivoting away from the standard starting lineup, where you just send your 9 best players out every day, and more towards a game where you're consistently rotating players in and out to get rest and relying on platoons and matchups to juice as much value out of your role players as possible. In 60 games last season, the Dodgers used 55 different starting lineups, not including batting order or starting pitchers. They didn't use any combination of 8 starting position players more than twice all season. LA's ability to do this is facilitated by Hernández and Taylor, who can both play 6 positions to give everybody else the rest they need and play whatever position suits them the best, while guys like Kiké fill in the gaps. It takes a special type of team player to be a proven major leaguer like Kiké, but still show up at the ballpark every day not knowing where or if you're playing, and not only accept that role, but embrace it. Even during stretches where Hernández wasn't playing very well, which, let's face it, happens sort of often, by being available to give anyone else on the team rest at any position, and not having any sort of ego and taking on this role wholeheartedly, Hernández enabled the stars like Turner, Bellinger, Seager to stay as fresh as possible, and thus was indirectly responsible for a lot of their value. Hernández's flexibility was also extremely helpful in bringing in trade and free agent acquisitions and developing younger players. By fitting in anywhere, Hernández allowed new players to play their primary positions and fill in everywhere else. When the Dodgers traded for Manny Machado in 2018, Taylor and Hernández had no complaints about getting moved off shortstop. When top prospect Gavin Lux came up in September 2019, once again Hernández was removed from the lineup, and even though Lux wasn't playing particularly well, Hernández kept up the same infectious clubhouse persona and accepted that he could contribute in other ways. Hernández's value beyond the box score doesn't stop with his positional flexibility, though. The 162-game MLB season is a grind, but Hernández's humor and general goofiness brought levity that helped all his teammates get through it. His outgoing personality made him ideal to give interviews and sound bites, instead of other less experienced or more introverted players who may be more out of their comfort zone being a public figure. And of course, it made him an endearing, lovable goofball, but Kiké was an endearing, lovable goofball that was clearly very eloquent and very smart, making him one of the best interviews in baseball. Players like Hernández that are expressive on the field but outspoken and energetic off it are so important for marketing your team and marketing baseball in general. The Dodgers attracted a lot of fans due to Hernández's off-the-field presence, and no doubt the Red Sox will see the same effect. And finally, we simply cannot ignore the fact that Enrique Hernández is absolutely, positively caked up. Despite never being an all-star, Hernández was easily one of the league leaders in cake above replacement, which is never a negative factor. Let's not let the fact that Hernández has a ton of extraneous value take away that he's a very good baseball player. In spite of the inherent value of comedy and tight pants, Boston didn't give him $14 million to crack jokes and have a fat ass. Boston gave him a contract for his previously mentioned positional flexibility, but also his high defensive ceiling, skilled bat against left-handed pitching, and postseason heroics. Looking at Kiké's career numbers, they really aren't that great, but I believe he's better than his stats indicate. He doesn't hit for average, but his bat has a good amount of pop, and he strikes out less than average. At his best, he could take more walks than average as well, but in 2019 and 2020, he was slightly below that mark. In 2018, which was Hernández's best career season, he slashed .256, .336, .470, with some of the league's best defense at second base, which resulted in 3.2 WAR and just 462 plate appearances. Outside of this season, Hernández has been a below-average hitter for most of his career, with a 99 WRC+ in 7 seasons. But this factors in Hernández being used in a lot of suboptimal situations, namely against right-handed deception pitchers. Hernández is at his best when he's facing lefties and facing fastballs, and when he's allowed to hit in those situations, he thrives. But as we've mentioned, Hernández is a selfless player. He's willing to play whatever role the team needs, even though it hurts his personal stats. In Hernández's career against lefties, he's had a 120 WRC+, meaning he was a 20% better hitter than league average. Compare this to a career 82 WRC plus against right-handed pitching, and you can see what makes Hernandez valuable not only as a platoon bat, but also as a late-inning pinch-hitting option. Let's move now to Hernandez's defense, which, depending on what metrics you look at, ranges from average to very good. By defensive runs saved, Hernandez grades out as one of the best defensive second basemen in baseball, with 24 DRS since 2018. This is especially impressive considering defensive runs saved is a counting stat, and he's only played about half his innings at second base. On the other hand, by ultimate zone rating, a different defensive metric, Hernandez is slightly below average, but this is mostly due to an excess of errors. Hernandez's range was slightly above average, but it was offset by a bunch of errors in 2020 that were probably a career outlier. Hernandez's overall defensive numbers are about average, but a lot of that is due to playing a lot of innings at shortstop or center field where he's a bit stretched. If Hernandez gets a full season of innings at second base, he should be a well above average defender. The idea of clutch players mostly stems from small sample sizes and confirmation bias, but depending on what split you look at, Hernandez is pretty clutch. Kiké has a lot of memorable postseason performances, like his 3 home runs in Game 5 of the 2017 NLCS. Hernandez was pretty terrible throughout the whole 2018 postseason, but if you remove that year, he's had a career 22.1% championship win percentage added, which is a context-based stat, meaning in his postseason career, he's increased LA's chance to win a World Series by 22.1%. In the regular season, Kiké has an 81 WRC plus in low leverage situations, but that goes up to 122 in medium leverage and 110 in high leverage. He also has a career 108 WRC plus with runners in scoring position, about 10 points higher than his career average. Based on overall win percentage added numbers, where he's a little below average, I don't think you can definitively say Hernandez is a clutch hitter, but he definitely has a penchant for the big moment. Out of the entire 2020 season, which was obviously incredible for Dodger fans, there's one moment that sticks out as my favorite. In Game 7 of the NLCS, with the Dodgers down 1 in the bottom of the 6th, Kiké Hernández stepped to the plate as a pinch hitter. He worked an 8-pitch at-bat, and he mashed a home run off lefty AJ Minter. In a lot of ways, it embodied all the best of Hernández. He came off the bench to face a lefty and cover for Jock Peterson. He showed his flair for the dramatic. He scrapped the at-bat, fouling off 3 pitches to avoid a strikeout. And even though Kiké didn't start the game, when he pinch hit in the ideal situation against a lefty fastball hitter, he didn't miss his shot to play his role on the team perfectly. But what makes this moment my favorite, and what makes Kiké my favorite, is the context behind it. Everyone deep down his entire tenure as a Dodger knew he was good enough to start, but LA was just so deep he never got the chance. But Kiké never complained. He showed up to the ballpark with a smile, and he helped the team however he could. But when Kiké hit that ball, he knew it was gone. But he didn't smile on the trip around the bases. He didn't smile when high-fiving his teammates. He didn't smile afterward in the dugout. Kiké Hernández, one of the most good-natured people in baseball, looked mad. And it was fucking hype. It felt like after years of playing well and never getting the starting job, years of having prospects and free agents breathing down his neck, years of taking one for the team and doing the jobs that no one else wanted to do, years of stars outshining him because of his selflessness, he was finally vindicated. And I'm happy for him. I'm happy that he'll finally get his chance to play every day in Boston. And I'm thankful for his time in LA, where even if he never had the greatest numbers, his presence was a huge cog in the Dodgers machine that culminated in their first World Series in 30 years. So thank you for everything, Kiké Hernández. Boston's getting a good one. One last parting message for you all. Alt-O232. That is the hotkey for the accented E in Kiké's name, and I recommend you use that one. That'll save you some headaches in the long run. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy the content, liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment telling me what you think helps me out a ton. I'll catch you guys in the next one.